Welcome back to That Dad Guide. It's May 15th, 2025. It feels like summer outside. It's 29 degrees Celsius, feels like 32. And today we're going back and looking into my father's stamp collection. We've been going through chronologically, alphabetically more like, with the Americas, everything but Canada and the United States from my father's collection. And today we're still going alphabetically, but we're doing a little bit different today. Today's not about a country per se, and so if you're interested in stamps, you're interested in a little bit about a history, and you might have found the right channel. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave positive comments, you share with other people, and you put the notification bell on. Well, today's area, let's say, issued stamps, but they covered a whole bunch of different countries, and it is the next letter in the alphabet as far as what stamps were in my father's collection. He only had a couple of these stamps. I've been lucky enough to add a few more, so we are going to look at what's in his book, and then we'll look at the ones that I've got to add, and we'll go from there. That sounds like the best plan of action. And I can tell you, I kind of debated today what we were going to talk about. Whether we would look at the next alphabetical country that's in there, whether we'd go back and get to some of the countries that I missed originally. Because when I first started this, we just kind of looked through this book. There was no history to go with it. We didn't talk about anything other than looking at the stamps. And so I really want to go back to some of those countries, especially because I had someone reach out to me that says, I'm from this particular country, and I don't know the video that you did on it. And I had to say, well, I haven't really done a specific video on that country yet. So I do want to go back and do that, especially for his country. So we might have a Thursday coming up where it isn't necessarily the next letter in the alphabet, but it is the same region, by going back and looking at some of the countries that I didn't do the historical portion of the video with. And so that might be what we're going to be looking at coming up here, especially as we're getting into the summer months, and just try to mix things up a little bit and keep you guessing too what we're going to talk about. Well, that's enough preamble. Let's get into what we are going to talk about today, and that's the Leeward Islands. So, the Leeward Islands. Okay, let's go into the definition first. What is leeward? What does that mean? So, windward means towards the source of the wind or upwind. So, leeward is downwind, away from the source. That's where the terminology comes from. Now, how did these particular islands get the name Leeward Islands? Well, the trade winds of the West Indies, so the West Indies, we're talking about the Caribbean, or the Caribbean, depending on your pronunciation. The trade winds of the West Indies come mostly from the northeast. So they're coming down off of Florida and in, around that part of the U.S., and the islands kind of start below Puerto Rico. So that's the West Indies, that's the Lesser Antilles. They have a whole bunch of different names they call them. And so sailing vessels originally, when they were coming from Africa, when they were leaving like the British Gold Coast, the Gulf of Guinea, they would reach Dominica and Martinique first, all going windward, upwind. But as they got to Antigua, Montserrat, and the islands north, they were all called leeward, because now they were traveling downwind of the trade winds. So that's how they got their names. So modern north of Martinique are the Leeward Islands, and everything below that are the Windward Islands. But from 1890 to 1956, while these islands were considered British colonies, or presidencies, as you may want to call them too, they issued stamps. So from 1890 to 1956, for those 66 years, they issued Leeward Island stamps. Those were general issues that you could be used in any of the islands, but islands like Dominica and St. Kitts, they all issued their own stamps too. So you could use both postage, and you will see them separately in the book, but they were valid at both places. So what is Lesser Antilles? That's mainly Antigua, Montserrat, St. Christopher or St. Kitts, with Nevis and Anguilla, and the British Virgin Islands, Dominica. Dominica became its own independent country in 1940, so it left the Federation. But those are areas that you can see leeward stamps being issued and used in. So each island was created along that coast by volcanoes, because the Lesser Antilles were on the subduction zone, or in the subduction zone, which means that the tectonic plates merge And so the plate that was coming from South America and again, the Caribbean, they were colliding together and forcing the ground upwards. You'll see in this diagram here too, that made all of these volcanoes that created islands. The most recent volcanic eruptions happened in Montserrat in the 1990s, and then again in 2009 and 2010. So there is some active volcanoes that are still in that area. But we want to talk about stamps. So if you have a Scott catalog or a Stanley Gibbons, here's my Scott catalog from 2009. And if I look under the letter L that follows right after Lebanon, you're going to get the Leeward Islands right there. And it gives you a little bit of a synopsis. It's located in a group of islands in the West Indies or southeast of Puerto Rico. So we've talked about that. It was a British colony. The area is 223 square miles. The population, this has a population as of 1946 because it was, while it was still all grouped together and not independent. The population was 108,000 people. The capital of the area was St. John. And then it talks a little bit about the stamps, which we've already talked about too, and the different presidencies that were a part of it. So now what I want to do is go into this album and show you exactly what my father had for stamps from the Leeward Islands. Now, he has put this all together alphabetically, and so he has used the same page that he has M on, because he only has 5 stamps from the Leeward Islands. So I'll show you those 5 stamps. Here you can see a few stamps that he has are these 5. Not this one. This one's Mexico. So you can see not a very big collection of Leeward Island, but then again, there's only 60 odd years of stamps. So let me show you the ones that I've collected. So I bought a collection, and the person that had created the collection made his own pages. And you can see here, this is the very first one in the series that came out. A1 is the style. So there was a whole bunch of A1 styles. As you can see here is number 2, a stamp in the collection. Very similar because it's the A1 style. So that's what's happened here. It is not a complete collection. As you can see, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 all missing. But there's still some nice representations in here. It also lets me know which ones that I need to go and get in order to complete the collection if I can. If they're not too rare. A lot of small denomination stamps that would be used in any of these countries that were part of the Leeward Islands. Also find stamps from their countries too, as we've shown you in a few of the histories I've already done. I was quite pleased to find this collection where my father hardly had any stamps from that area, without the individual countries, that is. Part of the Coronation series. Much to say about these ones here. There are some overprint ones. I don't have them in the collection, but there are some overprint ones too that are out there. We're moving into Queen Elizabeth taking the throne, which is right at the end of when the Leeward Islands were still around. And the islands are still around. They're just not named as such. The Federation is no more. Wonder how many regions in the world have put out stamps as a federation, as a grouping. Of course, the USSR was a federation of a whole bunch of countries. They put out stamps. But like this, as in the Leeward Islands, a grouping of colonies, plus having them put out their own individual stamps at the same time, how many countries have done that? I know there's people out there that will know the answer and will put it in the comments. It does make me think though. So hey, you're collecting St. Kitts stamps, and now you're also collecting Leeward Island stamps because they were both used in that country. How many other places can you say that have put out two stamps in the same country with different names on them? I don't know. History's a funny thing, and I'm glad that I stumbled across this bit of history and was able to impart it to you. For those of you who knew all about this area and knew the stamps and this is old hat, hopefully you like the stamps regardless. And those of you who had never heard of the Leeward Islands before, or maybe have never seen any of their stamps before, I hope this was a bit enlightening for you and a little bit different than the normal Thursday videos I've done. There's not a whole lot of conquerors and political back and forth on it. It was just, here are the stamps from this country, from this region. Why is it this region called this? And kind of light and refreshing, don't you think? Well, that's it for this week. You guys have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Bye. So what should I do for next Thursday? I don't know. Am I going to carry on and go into the M's? Or will I go back to the beginning of the alphabet and get some of those countries? Maybe randomly too, not starting with A. I don't know. Something to think about.